Welcome to the Vine Resources podcast show. Welcome to another episode of the Vine Resources podcast show. Today I've got with us Darren Thomson. Darren is the CTO and Vice President of EMEA region for Symantec. Darren, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all. Good to be here.
Darren, why don't we just get straight into it and tell us a little bit about Symantec and what you're doing within the company?
Yeah, by all means. So Symantec is a name that many people may not recognise. We're actually the largest cybersecurity software company in the world right now. And for those people that don't recognise the name and the brand Symantec, they may well recognise the name Norton. So Norton is our consumer brand that is the software that we use to protect people at home, protect their laptops and their home devices, etc. And that is a subsidiary of the bigger company, which is Symantec. The Symantec side of the house where I work is very focused on delivering security to the enterprise. So really securing business and making sure that information in business is kept secure and private.
Fantastic, and thanks for sharing that, Darren. And as I said, you've got 5 regions across EMEA as well. Tell me what a typical day in the business looks like for you as the CTO.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, really. I one of the things that I value 2 things more than anything else in my career, I suppose, really. Number one is the ability to learn. So the moment I stop learning and have stopped learning at any point in my career, I tend to move and do something else. The other thing for me really is variety. I'm very good at doing one thing every day. So one of the benefits of my role right now is it's a very varied role. So typically in my week, as you mentioned, I look after what we call the Europe, Middle East and Africa region. So my patch, I suppose, spans Johannesburg to Finland to Moscow to Dublin. It's quite a big patch. So I have team members that cover that patch for me, but regularly I'll need to go and visit the various regions, talk to customers and partners and help them with their security strategies. So quite a big part of my week is normally made up of travel. I travel probably on average once every 2 weeks and would typically try and combine more than one country into a trip. Mm-hmm. And then broadly speaking, my role is split between research, writing and customer facing work. So I do a lot of research in terms of understanding what we as a company internally are developing and engineering. Hot topics there right now in my field are machine learning and artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time documenting what I know, mainly with the purpose then of articulating that to our customers and to our partners. So I write blogs. I'm fairly active on social media. I write a lot of presentations and deliver keynote addresses and things of that nature, plus work with media like yourselves. So a lot of my week is spent sort of writing things down that I then need to articulate, and then most of my time, probably 2/3 of my time, would be spent in meetings or on stages, talking to customers and partners about security strategy and things that we need to be aware of as businesses with regards to cyber defence.
Brilliant, and we'll come on to that later because obviously this is a hugely fast-moving market as well. Can you name a person who's perhaps had a tremendous impact on you as a leader? It may even been a mentor to you, and how did that person impact your life so far?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I take a lot of influence from, at the moment, the likes of Elon Musk. I think there's always, for me, I'm fundamentally a technologist, and I'm a big fan of kind of innovation. So things I've never met Elon as such, but I follow his work very, very carefully, very inspired by what he's been able to do, particularly around the electric car, the Tesla stuff. But then closer to home, I think the person that I would has probably had the most influence on me was a guy who I worked for about 15 years ago now, and he was the person that introduced me really to the concept of what I would call real leadership. So moving away from the idea that just because you've been in a company for a long time, you would naturally become a leader, and really introducing me to the concept of running a business. the people aspects of that, the psychological aspects of that, as well as the financial aspects of that. So for the first time, under his leadership, I was running a P&L, a profit and loss account. I was having to think about how to spend money in my part of the business wisely and get return on investment and things of that nature, liaising with other parts of the business and partners externally to the business to drive the mission forward. And I think under his guidance, I learned an awful lot about what I call true leadership. In my career, you very often find that the very, very good technical people are made leaders by default, just because that's the point of their career they've got to, and they'll often find themselves hopelessly out of their depth because they haven't been trained to be leaders. And so I was lucky enough to have this mentor, and he kind of guided me through that tricky patch.
Fantastic. Employee engagement is critical to the success of any business. So what are you doing from the top to keep your employees engaged at Symantec?
Yeah, well, I think the approach there varies really depending on the types of employees I'm looking after. So a couple of years ago, I was looking after basically all of the technical resources almost in the EMEA region. That totaled at the time, I think, about 160 people. And across those various teams, we had different maturity levels in employees, from graduates right the way through to people that have been in the IT industry for 30 or 40 years. And so under those circumstances, I think it's incredibly important with regards to engagement to adjust your approach depending on who you're talking to and who you're trying to engage with. Right now, I'm very fortunate in I run a very small team, a team of only 5 people, but they are 5 of the most senior people in the company, with some of the best experiences. So they're what we term security strategists. We have one of them for each of the 5 regions in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. These guys in my team are typically people that have got a few years on me in terms of their experience in the industry and the things that they've done. And so I'm learning from those people all the time. So in keeping those people engaged, it's really all about giving them space, really. These are clever people. They've been around the block a few times. They've made a few mistakes in their careers. I need to give them enough space, to allow them to try things out, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, innovate. I think the worst thing I could do with that kind of team is suffocate them, and try to micromanage. So they tend to be on a pretty long leash from me, and I guess I also, as a leader, need to be challenging to them. So I try to challenge every decision they make, but in a really positive way, not in a critical way, but really in a way that kind of suggests that maybe we look at this from a different perspective, and it looks different. So depending on the teams I'm managing, the approach would change. But right now, in terms of the team I'm managing, it's all about giving people space to grow and innovate and do the things they're best at.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Darren. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing business leaders today?
Well, I can only really talk to my segment, I suppose, of business. I work in IT and more specifically cybersecurity. The biggest challenge to leaders in cybersecurity today is talent. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I remember all those years ago when I went into the IT industry from college. You were in a situation where there were more people than there were jobs. We then went through a phase where exactly the opposite was true, and everybody wanted to work in IT, and it was 100 jobs for every 100 applicants for every job. In security, we've reversed again. There is a dearth of talent. There aren't enough people leaving school and university and getting into IT, let alone cybersecurity. Once people are in the industry, because of the complexity of what we do and the difficulty, I suppose, of combating cybercrime and the complexity of the threat landscape and the technologies that we use, it takes even the smartest graduate 5 or 6 years to really get up to speed and be firing on all cylinders with regards to being productive in the business and adding value. So we have a huge dearth of talent. Some of that is, I think, over time going to get resolved. A lot of things that we do today are becoming automated with things like machine learning and artificial intelligence. But essentially, what we're doing in cybersecurity is in what a social scientist would refer to as criminology. We're trying to understand the cyber criminal in order to get ahead of the game. And so more and more of the talent that we need has this sort of slightly strange combination of technical ability and social ability, and it's even harder to find that kind of combination. So I say dearth of talent is probably the biggest problem that we have today. I personally am a great believer in trying to bring more diversity into the industry as well. I'm personally a board member of a charity called Teen Tech, which is very focused on targeting younger teenagers and getting them interested in technology and the STEM topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that because I think focusing on students at the sort of sixth form or university level, we're kind of too late. They've largely made up their minds where they want to be going by that point. And if they're not joining the IT industry, they're not planning to. They're probably not going to. So I'm very passionate about getting to children at the sort of 11, 12, 13-year-old sort of phase and really showing them what this industry is all about and some of the exciting jobs that could be waiting for them.
Darren, what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it's to do with stress. Actually,
Right.
A piece of advice that was given to me, funnily enough, by the same mentor that we referenced earlier, was I remember him describing the analogy to me of a roller coaster, and our careers and our day-to-day work, or maybe week to week, month to month, is always going to have ups and downs. There's always going to be times where there's way too much going on, and we're very, very stressed, and we're finding it very hard to manage and juggle the various jobs that we're responsible for. And there's going to be other times where, if we're really honest with ourselves, that kind of slackens off a little bit, and we give it a bit more space to breathe. And I think a lot of people feel a bit guilty when those times happen. I certainly used to. I think I have a very strong work ethic, so at times where I'm slightly less busy and there is a bit of space to think and breathe, I tend to, I used to sort of fall into a bit of a guilt there and just go and find myself more work to do. The advice he gave was, think about that roller coaster and make sure that during the times where you're not quite so busy, you're recuperating. Spend a bit of time in the gym, or go for a run, or read a book, or do something and sort of regenerate, because we're always going to have those very, very fast times when there's way too much work for us to do, and we're going to need those energies during those times. And I think that piece of advice has really helped me to combat kind of burnout, I suppose. I've never been in a situation where I've got ill through stress or through how busy I am. I do travel an awful lot as well, so I've made use of the fact that I am sat on aeroplanes, for example, for long periods of time. So rather than necessarily spending 100% of that time working, I might read a book or watch a movie or have a sleep. So I think that was really good advice. I've managed, touch wood, to stay healthy so far, and I think it's largely due to that advice.
Darren, that's fantastic advice, and I'm sure many people would need to stop and think for a moment on how their day is and weeks are panning out to make sure they don't have that burnout as well. How do you help a new employee understand the culture of your company?
I think more than anything else, to expose them to it. I see an awful lot of graduate programs and onboarding programs that essentially wrap an employee in cotton wool for way too long. I'm a big fan of jumping in, and so whilst induction programs are very important, and they certainly need to arm people with what are the processes you need to be aware of, and what tools are you going to use, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I favour an onboarding approach that is very much people centric and kind of gets people talking to people as quickly as possible. So for a new employee, I would typically spend a sort of a full week immersing them in the process of the business and how the business operates, but then very quickly get them into projects, get them working with other people, other departments, just making sure that they're fully immersed in the culture, so that we can iron any issues out sort of really, really early. My experience is that people don't leave companies or get discouraged or feel demotivated typically because of their tasks. Those things normally happen because of people, because of other people, the relationships with people, whether that be their managers or their peers or people they're working with in other contexts. So I think it's really important to get people together quickly, so that any issues can be ironed out. And to your point, people get very aware of what the culture is very quickly.
Fantastic. What's the one mistake you witness business leaders making more frequently than others?
think over the years what I've seen is the concept of self-promotion coming back and biting people. You know, I see an awful lot of people that are determined, for some reason they would make an assumption that the hard work that they're carrying out is not being recognised, and so they kind of over-promote the amount of work that they're doing and the things that they've accomplished. And you know, my experience is that if you're doing a good job and you're bringing value, that eventually, sooner or later, that's going to get seen. You know, that's going to get noticed. If you do a great job, I found anyway, if you do a great job, eventually it gets recognised. It may not get recognised quite as quickly as you would like. There's not instant gratification there. But I think exercising a bit of patience there is very important. I see an awful lot of new leaders, you know, spending way too high a percentage of their time promoting themselves and their work. And actually, you know, that doesn't come off well with experienced leaders. When experienced leaders hear that, there's a bit of a revulsion, you know, it's a bit tiresome, you know, and I've seen people damage their careers that way.
What, Darren, in your opinion, what's the one behaviour or perhaps trait that you've seen derail more leaders' careers?
I think it's the same one.
Yeah.
Exactly what I just mentioned there. Yeah, it does become a little bit addictive as well. You know, if you get into this kind of, because simply what will happen is if you are a self-promoter, the initial responses you'll get from people you think are actually favourable. They will humour that behaviour to an extent, and that's even more dangerous, because then I see people get into this cycle of behaviour where they do more and more of it. I've seen that damage a lot of careers, derail a lot of leadership careers at least. So I think I'll stay with that point on that one.
How do you see your industry changing in the future, and how do you affect that, or how do you believe it'll affect your ability to attract and hire the best talent?
Well, my industry is, I think you mentioned earlier, incredibly fast moving. It's interesting to me that in doing this job for the best part of 25 years now, for the first time in my career, people outside of my industry are asking me about my job. You know, so I have friends who are you know, ambulance drivers and actors and racing car drivers and all kinds of interesting folk that you know, when socialising at weekends would be the people you'd go to ask how their job's going. And I was never that guy. Security is hot right now. I mean, cyber security, cyber defence is very, very topical. Whether you're a business or you're an individual, you are being touched by this kind of race to digitisation that we're all experiencing right now, and you are becoming more and more exposed to cyber threat, whether that be at home or at work. So security is very topical right now. It's moving very, very fast. You know, and in my industry really is an arms race between the good guys and the bad guys. And people like Symantec, you know, and others, of course, are in a digital arms race with the cyber criminal fraternity. What's interesting there is that the cyber criminal fraternity has changed as well. It's no longer necessarily teenagers locked in their bedrooms making a bit of a nuisance to themselves. You know, very often we can be dealing with, you know, state-sponsored gangs of cyber criminals who are going after big business. So there's a whole spectrum there. So I think the way that's going to continue to change the industry is going to be, I mentioned one of the things earlier, so we're going to rely more and more on the social sciences as well as the technology sciences to do our jobs, because after all, you know, at least part of the job, a big part, is understanding the cyber criminal and their motivations. That's social science, that's criminology. But also advances in technologies such as machine learning and artificial intelligence are having already a pretty profound effect on the industry. We already find that, you know, we're dealing here with a multi-dimensional, very complex set of problems, and you know, many of the sort of diagnosis techniques that we need to use can be automated through machine learning. That really helps us to get ahead of the game. The irony, of course, is that the cyber criminals are thinking exactly the same thing, and so they're adopting exactly those techniques and technologies on their side as well. And so I think more and more of my industry will become automated. Certainly the very repetitive, manually intensive tasks that exist in the industry, and I always encourage people in sort of career conversations to think about what are the jobs that are hard to automate? What are the jobs that, you know, an algorithm is going to find very difficult to do a good job at? And that's typically to do with human interaction and emotion and thinking outside of the box and solving very, very complex human problems. But I think people need to gravitate to those kind of jobs over the next decade, because much of what we do otherwise is going to be automated.
Absolutely. If you had your time again, Darren, and you were giving your 20-year-old self advice, what's the one thing that you would say to yourself?
Oh, another good question. I think, I've been very fortunate. I wouldn't say that. I think there's a couple of things here. I often say to younger people at the graduate level, don't make the mistake of thinking that the lack of a plan is necessarily going to make a failure of you. I don't think very many people's careers go to plan. I'm not even sure I had a plan. I've been very fortunate in that I've been exposed to diversity in jobs, and I've travelled and I've done a lot of interesting things, but almost none of those were planned from one step to the next. Mm-hmm. So I think one piece of advice I'd give myself is just don't obsess about the plan. I see people trying to construct a 20-year plan as to where they want to be, and invariably I think they're going to be disappointed when that doesn't happen. So that would be the first thing. I think work hard, focus on the things you enjoy. You're always going to be better at the things that you like doing. And you can't always have that, but I think to try and edge towards the things that you enjoy is a good idea. And I think also don't be swayed too much by other people's opinion. Take advice from people that have got more experience than you. Be humble, listen, but don't be swayed by trends necessarily. I think any mistakes I made in my career, I think I was trying to chase the money in some instances. Go after the next hot thing. And there's always a next hot thing in technology. I think go with your gut, go with what you enjoy, because that's typically going to be the thing that you're best at. Have fun as well. We're very lucky to live in an age where there's high levels of employment. Most of us are working. Those of us that are lucky are working in things that they enjoy, and make sure you take enjoyment from them.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Darren. Darren, it's been great sharing your insights. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, to get in touch with yourself or Symantec?
Yeah, well, you can definitely find me on Twitter, Darren C. Thomson, Thomson without a P, at Darren C. Thomson on Twitter. I'm also, you'll find me, if you just put in Darren Thomson Symantec onto LinkedIn, you can connect with me that way as well. I'm pretty active on both of those platforms.
Darren, thanks so much for joining us today, and wish you all the best for the year ahead.
Thanks very much, and to you.